I was telling Eli earlier about the Four Agreements, but what we've been talking about all day is a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I'm going to ask Maud to explain the first agreement, and then I'll do the second one.
So actually, well, I want to say first, why four agreements? Why are they called four agreements? It's the idea that we can replace our old agreements that were sometimes not very positive for ourselves to use that as a way to handle things that happen in life. So we agree to use these principles. We agree with those truths. So the first one is be impeccable with your word. That means lots of things. It means do not say bad things about other people. Do not say bad things about you, like, oh, I'm stupid, I forgot this or that. What's the point? And it can go very, very deep.
It has to do with the judgments that we're making on our world from the belief system that we inherited from our families and from our culture. So if I believe certain things about certain groups of people, then I'm going to carry judgments about those people. And I'm going to speak those judgments about those people, which puts me in a position of judging, of being injurious with what I say. And it also means that I judge myself in some way out of those same basic belief systems.
And I would even add that the worst judgments we have usually are about ourselves. We are very, very hard with ourselves. So that's about be impeccable with your word.
And it has to do with judgment. It has to do with guilt also. The second agreement is about not taking things personally. So if I say to Maud,
so what is it exactly? Do not take anything
do not take
personally.
anything personally. So if I say to Maud, for instance, you're ugly today, and she takes it personally.
And I believe I'm really ugly. Instead of thinking, well, maybe he has a bad day, and he's saying that either to tease me, to see how I'm reacting, or just because he cannot
Would
see.
I do that?
He cannot see really. It's his story. It's his version, and I can decide to be in my authenticity and my well-being with myself and not take personally what he's telling me.
My understanding of this, it has to do in part that we live behind a veil of our beliefs. So I look at my world and I see it according to what agreements I've already made with my world and how I think of myself. So I see things not purely, not clearly.
It's like
but through
seeing things through glasses, through tinted glasses. So when we are behind the sunglasses, we think the colors are what we see. But actually,
you're blue.
Yeah, you're green, you're brown. But actually, if we take off our glasses, we see reality and the colors as they are. But we don't know that because most people keep their glasses on.
Well, also, I have to assume that you've always got your glasses on when you're talking to me, and that therefore, whatever you say, I need to sort out in terms of my reality and the way I see my world and myself. Otherwise, I'm drawn to get entangled in the drama that you're inviting me into.
Yeah.
So you want me to become a victim, or you want me to fight with you, or you want me to respond to you in a certain way. You're going to present, you're going to talk to me in a certain way. And that's coming out of your vision, out of your world.
Yeah, but sometimes people say to me, well, that's too easy because if it's always the other person's perspective and I don't need to take anything personally, then I don't care about what anybody would say about anything. And this is not the point. We always can say, is there
That's
something?
True.
Is there something here for me to learn? Is there something to look at? But we do it in a very calm way, not by reaction, not emotionally entangled, but just very calm as an inquiry, not a reaction.
An interesting way to phrase this is that what other people think of me is none of my business. So what's the third agreement?
So third agreement is don't make assumptions. And that's seems a difficult one, and actually it's not easy at all. Because an assumption is, again, a projection on reality of what we think is true.
Again, it's out of our own worldview.
Exactly. And thinking that other people have the same view of the world. And that's where the problem becomes to be difficult, because there is problem in communication. So that means the consequence is that we need to ask questions and don't take for granted what we think is the truth. You have an example?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I think that we grow up in a culture where we're taught to assume that the culture is true. What they've taught us is correct.
Yeah, and
it's the people who are working on the edge, who are always kind of looking strangely from the culture's point of view. The Einsteins, the Edisons.
Yeah.
Okay, these people are always walking on the edge by asking questions that everybody else is kind of uncomfortable with, and looking at them and saying, whoa. But they're not making assumptions about their world, about what the world is made of and how it works.
Also, when you travel a lot and when you go to other cultures, you realize what we think we take for granted is not at all the same thing in another culture. For example, when someone gives you a present, in our culture, we're expected, the assumption is you're going to open it and show your reaction and thank the person right away. In other Asian culture, you never want to open a present right away. You keep it, say thank you very politely, and you will open it later on without the person being there. So you won't embarrass them if you don't like it or whatever, but it's a different assumption.
So the fourth agreement is to always do your best, which is a way of saying recognize that your best is going to be different depending on different conditions. If you're sick, your best is not going to be the same as when you're well. If you're confused, you're not going to be as well as high functioning. If you're not educated in this sphere, you're not going to be as functional. So accepting yourself at your highest level and expecting of yourself that you're going to stay at your highest level, whatever that level happens to be, it's always varied. But accepting that, living with that, not judging yourself on that, not being critical of yourself for being in that place, of not being always at the top of your form. I mean, even Tiger Woods isn't always at the top of his form.
Yeah, and so that deals with also our idea of perfection. There is a big entanglement in this culture about we want to be perfect. And perfection is not part of this world. Perfection is part of an ideal world. So we do our best, which introduces really the notion of relativity. We are in a world of relativity, and our best today is not the same as yesterday or tomorrow. We just said that. So they are the four agreements. And if you live with those agreements, your life will definitely change.
You have a lot more freedom. You're not entangled.
You have better relationship with other people too.
Right.
Can you give me an example of how you have a lot more freedom?
Well, people will invite you into the drama where they want you to be a victim or they want you to victimize them by criticizing you and expecting you to respond angrily, for instance. And if you're not willing to accept the criticism and you stand aside from it and say, you know, that really isn't true, that's not who I am, that's not where I'm coming from, then their entanglement net doesn't catch you up, and you're free of that. And you can hold them in a different way. I think of relationships as creating sacred space in which people can grow and change, where they feel safe, they're not judged. And you can do that when you are not entangled in their dramas, but you're listening to them and you're responding to them out of an open, honest place.
And also the freedom for me is really the freedom to be who I am, using those four agreements, doing my best, being impeccable, and know that my world is different from the world of someone else. And I want to stay in the freedom of this world and be able still to communicate with others. But
it's interesting to explore their worlds. It's not necessary to get entangled in their
exactly.
worlds, in their emotions.
Hey,
People get into habits of their emotions.
there's a little bird that said, yeah, that's right.
The bird?
Did you hear it?
Well, that's the freedom business. That's the business of being with you and not being entangled in your perception of the way the world's supposed to work. Not entangled in the victimization process, which is so frequent in the society. Not being caught up in cultural norms that no longer work or cultural expectations that no longer work. We learn to trust our own experience by standing in a position that is not entangled. And because of that, we're able to respond from a place of integrity and affection. What's more than that? I mean, what else do you need?
I think you said very well that the place or true place is a place of love, openness, receptivity, and compassion. So if there is anything than that, it's a normal state, and joy and openness. So if there is anything than that, that means we need to let it go. I think we have an enthusiastic reporter there.
Thanks for today.
Yeah,
It was a pleasure to be with you guys.
yeah.
It really was.